This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Brody Carter. We begin this half hour with the political shockwaves after President Biden announced he won't seek re-election. This in the wake of mounting pressure from his base to leave the race. As Dale Hurd reports, many Democratic leaders have positive reactions about his decision, but the road ahead may be difficult for their party.
President Biden's announcement that he'll step down from the race got mostly positive reactions from Democratic leaders from across the political spectrum. Liberal California Governor Gavin Newsom, moderate Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, and squad member Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are all backing Harris.
Kamala Harris, as our Democratic presidential nominee, is going to bring an X factor.
She's been hitting the campaign trail hard. She's been raising money. I'm confident that she will have the delegates. She will have the resources.
Conspicuously absent so far have been Harris endorsements from Barack and Michelle Obama and Democratic leaders on Capitol Hill, including Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump said Sunday he thinks Harris will be easier to defeat in November's election than Joe Biden. Kamala Harris was California's first female attorney general, making headlines for enacting criminal justice reform before going on to the Senate. An RNC spokeswoman, Elizabeth Pipko, says Harris's record will be a liability.
Look, her record in California is just one of the things that she has to answer for. There's that weak record. There's also the record of this administration, right? The policies they've put forth, which are proving to not be popular with the American people.
And Joe Biden's withdrawal from the presidential race sends the Democratic nomination process into uncharted territory. For Democrats who have been wanting Biden to drop out after his poor debate performance, this could be a case of be careful what you wish for. Despite apparent widespread support for Harris in the party, Biden's exit sets up the possibility of an open convention to choose his successor as the Democratic nominee. Democrats have until August 7th to get a nominee on the ballot in all 50 states. New York Democratic Congressman Richie Torres warned that anyone musing about a romanticized free-for-all at the Democratic National Convention is living in a dangerous fantasy land and is asking for a continuation of the chaos and confusion that has consumed Washington, D.C. And the clock is ticking for any other Democratic hopeful who might challenge Harris, such as West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, an independent who is reportedly considering rejoining the Democrats to run for president himself.
Let the process, a healthy competition is what it's all about. And that's why I believe it should be an open process.
Major questions remain for Harris, who says she'll earn the nomination and is reportedly already talking to potential vice presidential candidates. The DNC Rules Committee meets Wednesday to implement a framework to select a new nominee. President Biden says he'll address the nation this week to further explain his decision. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
We're joined now by Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, a busy couple of weeks for you. I do want to ask you, what was your initial reaction of hearing the news of President Biden dropping out of the race?
Well, clearly, obviously, it was historic. It didn't shock me at all. We've been talking about this for quite some time, that it was just a matter of time. As a matter of fact, I went on the 700 Club on Friday and I said, we're not talking weeks, we're talking days. And well, it ended up being 2 days. Joe Biden said he would resign if the Lord Almighty told him to. Well, I don't know about the Lord Almighty, but it was the powers that be, if you will, inside the Democrat Party that did that exactly. So, look, I think ultimately what we're talking about here is a situation where Kamala Harris at this point seems to be on a glide path to the nomination.
Well, David, with Kamala the likely nominee for president, what list of candidates could be in the running for vice president?
Well, there are a couple that stand out. You're going to hear Josh Shapiro's name mentioned a lot. He is the governor. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I don't know if you can see my shot here. He's the governor of Pennsylvania. Obviously, he's considered somewhat of a moderate Democrat, but look, they're all liberal. It's just how far left are you? He's a little bit to the right of the far left, if you will. He could be a possibility. But keep your eye on Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona, an astronaut, former astronaut, also United States Navy captain, considered a bit more of that I mean, he's liberal, but he's a little bit more in that moderate strain of the Democrat Party. So I think Mark Kelly from Arizona is someone to keep your eye on. Andy Beshear is also a guy, the governor of Kentucky, to think about. But right now, I think Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona, could be the pick.
Well, it's been reported that Virginia Senator Joe Manchin may be running for a bid for the presidency with a short amount of time before the Democratic National Convention. What then happens, David, if he or someone contests nominating Vice President Kamala Harris?
Well, then we'll go to a contested convention. We don't have that right now because right now at this point, it appears like it's going to be Kamala Harris. So what has to happen, Brody? Well, in essence, what needs to happen from Kamala's standpoint is she has to corral a majority of the 4,000 delegates. That's what she's going to be in the process of doing now. She's basically going to be talking to the delegates within the party that had been already, in essence, selected to represent Joe Biden. She wants to make sure she solidifies that support. And then you go on from there. As for Joe Manchin, look, he was a Democrat, then he left the Democrat Party. Now he wants to come back and be a Democrat. Not going to work. The energy in the Democrat Party is far left. Joe Manchin is not far left. So he will have no opportunity to win the nomination. I'm not quite sure if he's even going to put his hat in the ring. But if he does, it'll just be, in essence, a way to kind of get the party to move a little bit more to the middle.
Well, David, here real quick, why are some Republicans pushing for the president to end his current term now?
Yeah, well, a lot of different reasons. But the bottom line is that if it's a mental acuity issue, which, by the way, Joe Biden did not mention in his letter, his resignation from the campaign letter, if it's a mental acuity issue, then why in the world does the mental acuity aspect of it mean something for the next 4 years? Why? What about actually meaning something now? In other words, why in the world would we have a president who has mental acuity issues for the next 5 to 6 months or 7 months, whatever the rest of the year portends? So I think that's their issue. They say, look, if it's a problem, then the change needs to be made here and now.
Well, David, you've got some busy days ahead. Make sure to keep that Pepto-Bismol close by. I know that you've had your hands full. So thank you so much for your expertise, your analysis. David Brody, thank you very much.
You bet.
Well, coming up, we're headed to the Middle East. We'll tell you why Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is headed to the U.S. and what the Israeli Defense Forces confirmed as a major victory in its war against Hamas. Stay with us. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. On Monday morning, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu left for Washington, D.C. for a meeting with President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, and to deliver a speech on Wednesday before a joint session of Congress. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, Netanyahu leaves as Israel fights a 7-front war for its survival and heads to a city filled with great political uncertainty.
Netanyahu explained one of his main goals as he heads to Washington.
I will seek to anchor the bipartisan support that is so important for Israel. And I will tell my friends on both sides of the aisle that regardless who the American people choose as their next president, Israel remains America's indispensable and strong ally in the Middle East.
Netanyahu's departure comes following an Israeli attack on a major port Saturday in Yemen, after the Iranian-backed Houthis fired a drone on Friday into the heart of Tel Aviv. The Israeli strike was called Operation Outstretched Arm, and it destroyed a key fuel depot and strategic port used by Iran to provide supplies for the Houthis. The IDF also made a point that the distance from Israel to Yemen is greater than the distance to Iran, sending a message that Iran's nuclear facilities are within its range. Iran, the Houthis, and Hezbollah all promised retaliation after the strike. Netanyahu said it was time to respond after the Houthis launched hundreds of ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones against Israel and affected one of the most important waterways in the world.
For over half a year, the Houthis have not only attacked Israel, they've also targeted the ships of dozens of countries traversing the Bab el-Mandeb Straits. This is a maritime corridor through which some 30% of the world's maritime commerce flows.
And on Sunday, the IDF confirmed a major victory in its war against Hamas, the death of Mohammed Deif, the #2 leader of the terrorist group in Gaza. Israel had bombed Deif and his top aide after weeks of surveillance. His death represents a major blow to Hamas, since Deff masterminded the October 7th massacre and built Hamas into a military force. Some experts say the elimination of Deff represents an even bigger blow to Hamas than would be the death of Yahya Sinwar. But Israel took a hit on the international legal front Friday, when the International Court of Justice in The Hague ruled that Israel's presence in the West Bank, biblical Judea and Samaria, is illegal. The non-binding ruling states that Israel has occupied Palestinian territory since 1967, and it is obligated to end its presence in the territory as rapidly as possible. The court also says Israel should provide reparations for any damage caused by its wrongful acts. Netanyahu and other Israeli leaders denounced the ruling. The prime minister said, "The Jewish people are not occupiers in their own land, not in our eternal capital, Jerusalem, not in the land of our ancestors in Judea and Samaria. No false decision in The Hague will distort this historical truth."
Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us now live from Jerusalem. Chris, with Joe Biden dropping out of the presidential race, how might this development affect Israel's ongoing conflict with Hamas?
Well, Brody, one thing I would say that Netanyahu is going there to Washington. He wants to maintain the flow of materials, ammunition, to continue the war. He also wants to make sure that the U.S. has their stamp of approval on the war with Hamas, and possibly looking forward to that a greater war with Hezbollah up on the north. He's also going to have that important meeting with Kamala Harris, the presumptive, as you were just talking with David Brody about her being the new nominee for 2024. And then looking forward, one of the questions will be, is she going to have the same foreign policy team as Biden? And also, she's going to have to balance the progressive wing of the Democratic Party versus the moderates. All these things are going to be some of the calculation that Netanyahu is going in. There's such a shifting political landscape. And also, Netanyahu's looking at a possible Trump administration down the way in what happens in November, which would likely be a much more favorable administration to work with.
Well, Chris, you'd mentioned the International Court in Hague. So what impact does the ruling of the International Court of Justice have on Israel? And why do many say that it's not supported by international law?
Well, it's non-binding, as we said in the report, Brody, and Israel's not a signatory of the court, but it really does matter in the court of international opinion. It does give the Palestinian cause a boost. They can say that this is what the International Court of Justice says. But there is, to your question about international law, there are some who say that the title deed to the land of Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, was actually given to the Jewish people, not to the Palestinians. And if you go back into the history, we've reported on this many times, the San Remo Treaty in 1920, that provided the legal basis for the creation of a Jewish homeland. It was later confirmed by the League of Nations in 1922. And what it did was establish a British mandate, and Britain at the time was charged with establishing a homeland for the Jewish people. It's a long history, but CBN produced an excellent documentary about this called Whose Land Is It? And it goes into that history. And I would say anybody wanting more information about that, go to CBN.com and take a look at Whose Land Is It?
Well, Chris, very extensive reporting there. Thank you. With the confirmation, though, I do want to turn to the confirmation of Mohammed Deff's death. Those reports suggest that this creates significant challenges for Hamas. Chris, can you please explain why his death poses a bigger problem for the organization?
Well, first of all, it's going to create a leadership vacuum. He was the chief of staff of Hamas's military wing. That's called the Al-Qassam Brigade. He was considered the mastermind of October 7th. He developed Hamas's military strategy, the tunnel warfare, the rocket attack. So he's going to be, Brody, a very difficult person to replace. This could demoralize many of the Hamas fighters. And he survived multiple assassination attempts, at least probably 6. So in many ways, he's become a legend. And so also this is going to upset some of the internal cohesion within Hamas. And overall, it's going to weaken Hamas. And some have called the assassination of Mohammed Deif really a game changer in the war against the terror group Hamas.
Well, Chris, regarding that recent Israeli strike in Yemen and the threat of retaliation from Iran, the Houthis and Hezbollah, it indicates that that region is very unstable, very volatile. So how might these developments impact that regional stability and the security of global trade routes?
Yeah, well, there's been dozens of attacks by the Houthis since last November on Red Sea shipping, missiles, drone boats, naval mines. They control the strategic Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and that's really increased shipping across the world. It's actually done something to global inflation, a loss of revenue to Egypt. Well, it's really we're going to see how Iran, Hezbollah, and the Houthis respond, but certainly going to make this region much more volatile.
Of course, yeah. Chris Mitchell, thank you so much coming to us live from Jerusalem. God bless you, and as always, thanks for your insights. Still ahead after the break, see how one company is helping those with felony records find hope and a future. Stay with us. You're watching CBN News Watch. Welcome back to CBN News Watch. It may surprise you that 1 in 6 Americans has a felony record, an issue that's often an obstacle when getting a job. One Cincinnati company is taking away that hurdle by hiring people with a criminal past. As Charlene Aaron tells us, it's become one of the country's largest and most successful second chance companies.
70% of Nehemiah Manufacturing employees have criminal convictions. Thanks to the company's Second Chance program, however, many have the opportunity to build a better future for themselves, their families, and the community.
I am a 2-time felon who was struggling to find a job until I came across Nehemiah.
I came to Nehemiah a week after I was released from a 5.5-year prison sentence.
Since 2009, Nehemiah Manufacturing has brought jobs back to Cincinnati's inner city by licensing and marketing Procter & Gamble products such as Tide, Febreze, and Downy. CEO Dan Meyer has over 30 years' experience in the industry. He sees the company's mission as more than giving people a job, pointing to the Bible as inspiration for the company's name and mission.
It was an Old Testament prophet called by God to rebuild Jerusalem one stone, one brick at a time. And when we wanted to come in the inner city and start this company close to 15 years ago, it was to help those in most need.
At first, some of the Second Chance hires would work a few days or weeks and then disappear. Meyer then had an aha moment and brought in social workers to help remove barriers for employees he now sees as family.
We have transportation program, not only in the near term on a bus line, but we work with nonprofits to get our family members their first car. We have housing. We have our own Nehemiah properties where we charge quarter of the market rate and furnish it.
The company's holistic approach, which includes spiritual wellness and continuing education, has led to a thriving workforce.
As I started moving up in the company, I started to believe in myself. Fast forward 9 years, I'm the director of operations here, in charge of about 100 people here at Nehemiah that report to me.
Kristen Schumacher serves as the company's chief manufacturing officer.
We have some family members that have spent 20 plus years in prison.
Yes.
They would have never thought about being able to achieve a car, let alone a job, to be able to have the support that they have here. They never thought that that would even be possible. And so, Dan, like I said, Dan could speak more to the 8 pillars, but overall, what I would say, what I see with those 8 pillars is that our family members feel supported like they haven't ever before. And that translates into loyalty. That translates into wanting to work very hard for the purpose that they have here in Nehemiah.
All reasons that caught the attention of former NFL quarterback Tim Tebow and his wife, Demi Lee.
Nehemiah Manufacturing is a special place. When we had the privilege and opportunity to go for the first time, that's what really caught our eye and our heart. Meeting the people, hearing their stories, but then also seeing the way they were treated. And when we saw that, we thought this is something that we want to be a part of.
Being a part of the story of Nehemiah is so much more than just being an ambassador for another company. It's about a higher purpose, and that purpose is people.
A purpose Meyer believes is also good for business.
I always say this is capitalism done the right way. Treating people with love, dignity, and respect will build a better company and a better bottom line.
To be here and get hired on has been a true success.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Well, coming up, see how one zoo is keeping their residents cool this summer. Stay with us. You're watching CBN News Watch.
Introducing a brand new way to start your morning. Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Discover how God is moving around the world and here at home. Plus, get exclusive stories and daily scripture encouragement just for you. Stay informed. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
Get the inside scoop on Washington politics from the D.C. Debrief podcast. Don't miss this unique CBN News perspective straight from the nation's capital, because truth matters.
Welcome back to CBN News Watch. Here's something cool for all you animal lovers out there. Zookeepers at the Palm Beach Zoo and Conservation Society are working hard to keep all the residents at the zoo cool during these hot summer days. Otters enjoy playing with blocks of ice and frozen fish, while tigers get frozen cow bones served inside blocks of ice, and giant tortoises are sprayed with cool water, which they can feel through their shells. Yeah, certainly cute story there. Make sure to hydrate yourself, stay cool for you and your family. And that's going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Remember, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories that you've seen. You can email newswatch@cbn.com or talk to us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. We hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.